The Tesla is capable of full self-driving with the new beta software, and some people got it months and months ago. There's been lots of testing on it, but I just got it now in my wife's Tesla Model Y. It's actually not mine. I got rid of my 3 a long time ago, but I still drive this vehicle a lot, and we just finally got the beta, and as of June 2022, it has gotten very good. This is actually my first time driving with it, so I'm excited to see how it does. I wanted to take you on a little 45-minute drive. A lot of different situations that the car will be in, and let's see how it actually does. I'm excited to try it out. Let's go. So Tesla has had autopilot for a while now, and they're definitely one of the best at it. But the new full self-driving beta is a whole different story, because this is actually full driving top to bottom. So it's actually your turns that is taking you from point A to point B. And it's in a beta, meaning there's still a lot of testing that's being done, and as someone who drives the beta, you are one of the testers, and so you have to make sure that you're paying attention, because obviously it's not perfect yet. But it is very, very impressive from all the things I've actually seen in the YouTube videos, and I'm excited to use it more, because I do think this is clearly the future, and Tesla is leading that force, obviously, of self-driving. And I've always said it, autopilot doesn't get distracted, autopilot doesn't drink and drive. I think moving ahead with full self-driving will keep everyone safer realistically once these are all set and doing their thing correctly. So this is kind of that first big jump in that. One of the things I'll be interested in testing is how the full self-driving beta and the actual driving of the vehicle by itself affects the range. And the reason I say that is because even when you're on autopilot, I do feel like it uses the brakes more than it uses the regen, because naturally it's kind of maybe responding a little bit late and slamming on the brakes first. When you're driving yourself and you see someone coming up way in advance, you kind of naturally will let off the autopilot and kind of just cruise to a stop and never touch your brakes. I do feel like this will obviously slam on the brakes a little bit more often than the everyday person would. Same with acceleration. Naturally, when a light turns green, how fast is it going to accelerate out of that light? When a car in front of you starts to speed up and it now has a gap, how fast is it accelerating? The average person kind of does those things sometimes a little bit more naturally, where you see someone accelerating but you know that there's a stop coming up. You don't necessarily gun it because you know you're gonna have to come to a stop again, where this is kind of going to slam on the gas and then maybe brake right away. How much does that affect range will be interesting to see, because, or range or even brakes, for example. You don't ever really use your brakes in a Tesla, but how often will the autopilot use the brakes by itself? Things to kind of consider that I'm curious to try a little bit more. There have been some random times, obviously, that it has already slammed on the brakes occasionally, sometimes for the right reasons. Other times it'll be a yellow and it's naturally driving cautiously and not wanting to speed through the yellow, where a person might speed through the yellow. I mean, that's probably doing it the right way, which is slowing down, but some things to think about. So that was definitely one of those situations that I knew was kind of going to be a little tricky for it. And there's ones that still obviously has some work to do. It wasn't really a traffic circle. It had to go into the right lane to go left, but there was a left only there, so it got in the left lane, but naturally that's not where it wanted to go, and it might have realized that once it got there. I just decided to obviously just jump in and make sure it didn't do that. But so far it's been pretty decent. I mean, obviously it has some work to do, and I'm definitely right at the steering wheel kind of the whole time, just planning for it. It still is a little bit cautious when someone is on the side of the road like this and there's cars next to it and someone opens their door or whatever. It kind of swerves pretty big, and I've always kind of had that interesting debate internally of, if you're on a 2-lane road and someone cuts out in front of you and it can't slam on the brakes, does it crash into that car, or does it swerve into the other lane of traffic to avoid it and potentially crash into other cars? Or can it in real time see, is there trouble over there for me to do that? I don't know. So we're about to make a left-hand turn here to the location. impressive. All right, that really ripped it. It was making sure it didn't get hit by that car, I guess, but it was freaking flying. I disabled it just in case something happened, but I'm thinking it hopefully would have slowed down. So some initial impressions are very impressive. Obviously, the fact that the car can really drive by itself for most of the time. It's definitely not ready for, you know, me taking a nap and driving and having confidence that it would drive me home. Obviously, you can't do that anyway, but you get my point. It definitely has lots of room to improve. I have definitely taken over a lot, and some of it is probably still me not really being sure if the car is going to do it and me just being overly cautious. Other times it looks a little bit confused, which naturally I'd expect. It's still a beta, but it's making some good progress. Things I feel like it really needs to work on, and I don't know hardware enough to know what is required to, but just trying to pay more attention to what's coming up, because like I said earlier, I feel like it's using a lot more brake than it should, seeing as though the regen braking is obviously one of the best features in the Tesla for not using your brake pads. There are times that I clearly see traffic up ahead coming to a stop or slowing up, where I naturally would let off the accelerator and slowly come to a stop, gain some energy back and not use brake pads. It's kind of just cruising along and then suddenly coming to a much more abrupt stop where I feel the brake clearly pressing down a lot. Obviously, I want to see that improve, because one of the great things about a Tesla is the maintenance side of not having to replace much. And the more and more that it uses that brake pad, the more it's something you have to replace sooner than if you do it yourself. So those kind of things it needs to work on. There are times that it's being really aggressive when you're wondering why. And then there are other times where it's being super sensitive and you're wondering why. So just the real-time improvements of that, I think, need a little work, because, for example, like it just did there, it's just like really fast accelerating and all excited to go to wherever it thinks it's going, but I'm not really sure why. But no doubt about it, it's impressive that it's gotten to where it's at. I'm glad that obviously we're continuing to make progress into that, because obviously full self-driving is the future, and it's cool to see what it can do. One of the great things about this whole beta, though, is there's a button on there that you basically save a snapshot. So anytime something happens that is not supposed to happen, you basically can save that little snapshot, and when you save that snapshot, it's letting Tesla review that information and improve. So I do think that as someone who lives in a area that's not, you know, New York City or LA, where there's obviously a lot of different people testing it and sending snapshots, I don't know how much is being improved in real time on back roads in areas that I maybe am driving for the first time that no one with beta is driving. Who knows? I don't live in a huge city like that. So it'll be interesting to see, as new software updates come out, how fast things are improving. And when I get to a four-way stop sign and it does something weird and I save a snapshot, how much is that helping someone in a different part of the world also with that same situation? Or are they using just GPS mapping alone to determine how fast to turn, to slow down? Lots of questions to be answered that I don't really know if I'll get the answer to, but it's cool that I at least have it now. I get to play with it now. It's pretty impressive. It did about 80% of the drive very, very well, and it did maybe a little bit more than that. There was probably about 10% of the time that it was a little sketchy, but in that 45-minute drive, there were a lot of different situations that the car was trying to deal with. So to a point, I understand that it's obviously not there yet. But thanks for watching. Appreciate it. If you like this video and you want to see more things like this and a lot of other random things, make sure you subscribe. Talk to you real soon.